Greetings, ladies and gents, and welcome back. It's Mike Meets Science Club. In this video, we'll be looking at a question which was written in November 2021. It's a question on finance. So they said that for 7.1, an amount of 10,000 was invested for 4 years, earning interest at R per percent per annum compounded quarterly. So immediately after we hear that word compounded, so this actually tells us that we're going to use a compound interest formula, of course, which says that A is equals to P 1 plus I all raised to n. So they said that at the end of the 4 years, the total amount in the account was 13,080 rand. Determine the value of R. So in this case, that R, of course, would be the interest, right? So in this case, let's just write down what we have. We know that, of course, the amount that we have right at the end would be the accumulated amount, right, which was given to be that 13,000 and 80 rand. And then we know that, of course, we invested that 10,000. So in this case, P would be that 10,000, right? But now, of course, I, which is the interest rate. Now remember that that R percent would be, in this case, would be compounded quarterly, meaning that we will take whatever interest that we will get, and then we'll divide it into four equal parts. Now remember, we have 4 quarters in a year, right? So in this case, that interest would actually be R, right? Would be divided by 4 in this case. So in this case, now remember, n would be the number of times interest is added, right? So in this case, in a year, interest would be added 4 times, all right? But in this case, in 4 years, would interest would actually be added 16 times. So in this case, you just take 4, you multiply it by 4. Now remember, 4 quarters in a year. In this case, to find the number of quarters, in this case, in 4 years, you would just simply multiply that by 4. So in this case, that would give you 16. All right, so in this case, what we have, we know that, of course, we are looking for R, right? So in this case, I'm just going to rewrite that equation that we have. So we know that, of course, A is equals to P 1 plus I all raised to n. So in this case, of course, we know that A would be that 13,080 rand. So in this case, we know that, of course, P would be 10,000, right? So that's 1,000, so that would be 10,000. We open bracket, so that would be 1 plus R divided by 4 all raised to, in this case, 16. So what I'm going to do first, I'm just going to divide by 10,000 on both sides. So in this case, what you would have, let me see what we have. So in this case, we have 13,080 rand. So we have 13,080 rand, right? So that would be 080. Of course, we divide that by 1,000. So what we actually get by 10,000 rather, so we get the 1.1308, right? In this case, this would actually be equals to 1 plus R or divided by 4 or raised to 16. So what I'm going to do next would just be to take the 16th root. So in this case, what I would do would be just to, so this would be the 16 rows, right? So I'm not gonna put that into the calculator right now. The reason is I just want to to avoid writing a lot of decimals. Remember that we can't round off early right before it's the final answer. That would be 1.308. So in this case, this would actually be equals to 1 plus R divided by 4. So in this case, I'm just gonna subtract 1 on both sides. So in this case, I would have 16 root of 1.308, right? In this case, we subtract the 1, so this would actually be equals to R divided by 4. And again, I'm just going to multiply by 4 on both sides. So in this case, I'm just going to multiply 4 by everything. So in this case, I would have the 16 root being 1 point, of course, under the square root, under that would be 1.308, right, minus 1. So this actually equals to R. Now remember that R would be in percentage. So in this case, to get R, in this case, as a percentage, rather, you would actually multiply the value that you're going to get here by 100, right, eventually. So what I'm going to do rather would be, of course, you just multiply by R from that, multiply by 100. So in this case, I would multiply everything that I would get here. I would multiply it by 100. So in this case, that would actually give me the value of R. So in this case, what I would do, I'm just gonna write that. So in this case, open bracket for open another bracket. So in this case we have the 16th root. All right, so in this case this will be 1.308. Again, so we'll subtract 1. Right, so of course this, now remember that's not 3, so this would be for 16. So in this case we close the bracket, and then of course we multiply that by 100. So what you would get actually eventually would be 6.77. So this is would be R being 6.77 percent. So that would be the value of R in this case. So that would be the interest rate, the earning interest rate that would need to be given in order for us, to quarterly, in order for compounded quarterly in this case per year, in order for us to obtain the 13,000 and 80 rand after of course 4 years. So in this case for 7.2, they said that a businesswoman deposited 9,000 into an account at the end of January 2014. She continued to make monthly deposits of 9,000 at the end of each month up to the end of December 2018. They said that the account earned interest at a rate of 7.5% per annum compounded monthly. So in this case, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to erase what we have here, ladies and gentlemen, so that we can have somewhere to write. So in this case, what we would have, now remember this actually sounds like from my understanding, and from of course how I'm interpreting the statement, this actually looks like an annuity, in particular a future value annuity, because in this case we are depositing a certain amount, an equal certain amount of money into an account, in this case every month, right, at the end of every month. So in this case, what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna draw a timeline, of course, to make things easy for myself. So in this case, you know that of course we have at the beginning of January, right? So in this case, this would be T naught, right? But in this case, and then at the end of January, so which would be of course that 31st. So this would be 31st January of course that 2014, if I'm not mistaken. So in this case, this businesswoman, she deposited 9,000, right, right at the end. So in this case, she continued to do so until, of course, until the end of December 2018, right? So in this case, until at the end uh, of December, and this I'm just gonna write deck. This will be 31st December 2018. So this will be 2018. All right. So in this case, this was of course when she made her last payment of 9,000. So in this case, we would have 9,000 there, which is the last payment. So in this case, they said that calculate how much money was in the account immediately after the 60 deposits. So we can already know that this is actually a future video annuity, which says we know that of course the formula for that would be FV is equals to X. All right, 1. So this would actually be 1 minus 1 plus I, all raised to n minus 1. All of this is divided by I, right? So that's what we have. So in this case, we want to find out that of course how much would we have right at the end. Now remember what do we have now. We have the monthly payment, right? The monthly deposits of that which was given is 9,000. All right. So in this case, we know that this would be of course 1 plus. Now remember that interest was actually charged to pay per year, but in this case compounded quarter monthly. So meaning that we're gonna divide that interest by 12, right? So this would be 0.075 divided by 12, and all of that. So they actually gave us the number of deposits, right? So this would be all to the power of 60, but in this case we subject 1 there. So in this case, all of that is actually divided by 0.075 divided by 12. So in this case, if you put that into our calculator, let's see what we get. So in this case, we have 9,000. Right, no, that's actually 90,000 now. So this would be 1 plus. So in this case, this would be 0.075 divided by 12, and of course, all of that would be raised to 60. So we subtract the 1. right? From so in this case we subtract the 1, we divide everything by 0.075 divided by 12. So what we would get actually eventually at the end would be an amount of that 652,000 and 52,743 and 95 cents. So that would be the amount that of course the businesswoman would actually have in her account after the 60 deposit. So in this case this would be for 7.2.1. So that would be, so we have that as 6. So that would actually be R. So in this case we have 652,000, right? 743, and of course that 95 cents. So this is for 7.2.2. They said that the businesswoman left the amount calculated in question 7.2.1 for a further n months in the account. The interest rate remained unchanged and no further payments were made. So this actually is no longer a future value annuity or any annuity at some point. So in this case, they say that the total interest earned over the entire investment period was 190,214 rand and 14 cents. So in this case, now remember that we this would be of course a T60, right? So in this case, this would be a T60, right? So in this case, they say that of course so after she had obtained this amount of money at this point, at this time in period, she left it in the account for further 18 for further n months rather. So in this case she left it for further n months. Now remember what happens when you leave an amount in an account. We know that of course it earns interest, right? So of course that's what's supposed to happen. So of course in this case we know that of course at T60 now we have that amount that we calculated in 7.2.1. Now what they said in that statement, which is actually really important, so I'm just going to erase this, is that they actually mentioned the fact that the total interest earned over the entire period was 190,214 and 14 cents. So in this case this would be the oh, now what did I do? So in this case this would actually be the interest that was earned from that first payment, of course, of that 9,000 right until even after that end months. So in this case this would be the amount of money that would actually have right at the end. So this would actually include the interest that was earned over this time period, plus that was actually of course earned for that further n months. So in this case now what I'm gonna do for this question would be, now we know that of course they gave us that interest of course that the interest earned, the total interest in earned over the entire investment period, right? So in this case we know that of course all of these 9,000s of course plus that all of those 60 payments of 9,000 plus the interest earned over the 60 months plus the interest earned for that further n months, in this case would give us the amount at the very end, right here at the end, right? So I know that of course right at the end what the amount that I have actually would be that those are 60 payments of 9,000 plus the interest that they end, right? So in this case this would be the amount that I would actually have right at the end there. So in this case, to find the amount that I have right at the end, in this case would be, I would take all of those 60 payments right without the interest, and we and I add that interest that they end for that entire time period. So in this case this would be, now remember that I made this businesswoman I almost said I made like I'm actually the one making deposits of this 9,000, like yeah, I would never at this timing period. So in this case we know that of course so in this case what we would do would be, so to find the amount that would actually have right at the end even after that further n months, of course the total amount that would accumulate right at the end would take those 60 payments right that we made plus the interest that we earned for the entire time period, right? So in this case, I would say, of course, so the accrued amount right at the end, right? So I'm just gonna accrued. Oh, I don't think so. In this case, I'm just gonna leave that as A, since I don't want to take a lot of space there, and I already have many lines crossing up. So in this case, know that of course A would be of course would be that all of those 60 payments, right, plus the entire the entire interest, or the total interest, and of course for that entire time period. So in this case, this would be 9,000, right? All of those 9,000s, right, which were 60, plus that that interest there, that total interest. So this would be plus 190,000, 114, and 214 rather, and 14 cents. So this would be the amount that I would actually have right here at the end. So in this case, what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna find out that how much would that actually be, how much would I actually have right at the end. So in this case, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna say, of course, we have 9,000, right? Oh, that's 90 multiplied by 60 plus, in this case, I'm just gonna put that into brackets so that I don't make mistakes. So that's 190, 214, and 14 cents. So in this case, right at the very end, I would actually have an amount of a very good amount, by the way. So this would be 730,000, right? 214 and 14 cents. So this would actually be the accrued amount right at the very end. Now remember that of course at T60 we found out that this would actually be the amount that we have, right? So that amount here at T60 plus of course that amount that of course that we got at T60, in this case when it of course grow for that n months, must actually give us this amount here that we have at the end. So in this case, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna say, right, I know the amount that I have at T60, right? But I know that of course this amount that I have right here, of course not 2018, ladies and gentlemen, this amount that I have here at T60, in this case, must actually be worth 730,214 rand and 14 cents at the very end, right? So in this case, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna say, right, I know that at the very end I must have an amount of course, that 730,214 and 14 cents. But in this case, I begin with, of course, that amount that I calculated in question 7.2.1. So what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna use the interest, the normal compound interest formula, of course, which says A, is equals to P 1 plus I all raised to n. Now, what I'm gonna do in this case, I'm gonna say, right now, I know that of course at the very end I must have this amount, that's 730, right? So in this case, I know that I must have 730,214 rand and 14 cents, right? So in this case, I know that of course I have now at T60, I have that how much did we got again? Let me just scroll up. So in this case, how much did we got? We got that to be so we got that to be 652,743 rand, and of course that 95 cents. So this amount in this case must in this case give me this amount right at the very end, right, of course, from that T60. So in this case, what I'm gonna do, I know that of course the interest in this case was given as it was actually, let me just scroll up again. So in this case, we were given that is 7.5. They say that of course the interest remained unchanged. So in this case, this would be actually 0.075, right, divided by 12. But in this case, I don't know how long it took this amount that we have here, of course, to become that much. So in this case, I'm just gonna leave that as n. All right. I think, let me just scroll up again. I think I'm actually saying divided by 12 now, instead of I'm not sure if it was actually, yeah, it was 12, it was monthly, rather, it was actually a monthly. So in this case, what I'm gonna do, so in this case, I'm just gonna leave that as n. All right, I'm gonna leave that as n. So what I'm gonna do in this case, I'm just gonna divide both sides by 600. Of course, now remember that of course they say that calculate the value of n All right, in this case, so this would be the number of months that this amount actually took, that this amount took in this case to become that 730,214 and 14 cents. So in this case, what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna divide by 7. I'm just gonna divide by this value here that we have here. In this case, on both sides. So in this case, if I do that, let me just take up the calculator. So in this case, I have 700, 730, 730, 214 rand and 14 cents. I'm gonna divide that by 652, 652,743 and of course 95 cents. I'm actually saying divide by on top, in this case, rather than right there at the bottom. So this case would be 652 743 point 95 0.95. So in this case, what I would actually have would be that that large value that I have there. Now, what I'm gonna do, I'm not gonna round that off rather early. Reason being, of course, I don't want to keep all of those decimals. So in this case, what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna say that I know my battery is actually running low right now. So in this case, I have so in this case, this would be that 730, right? So we have 730, 214.14 divide by 652, 743 and 95. So this would actually be equals to 1 plus 0.075. I'm just gonna try to be a little bit fast so that it doesn't switch off right while I'm still making this video. So this would be divided by 12 to the power n, right? So what I'm gonna do again, I'm just gonna take so in this case, from this case, to find the value of n, I'm gonna use logs. So I'm sure you know your logs, ladies and gentlemen. So in this case, we have three parts, three parts actually in a log. So we have the base, which would actually represent, so we actually have the base in this case, which would actually represent what we have here, right? And then of course what we have here, which is n, which was n. This is, so that becomes actually our unknown, right? So in this case, of course, this will become the base, and this would actually become that solution there, right? The second bracket. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna say it right. So in this case, I know that n would actually be equals to log of course, our base, which is 1 plus 0.075 divided by 12, and of course, so this would actually be 600. No. So this would be 730, right? 214.14 divided by 652, 743.95. So if I put that into the calculator, let's see the value that I'm going to come up with. So in this case, what I have would be, I have log 1 plus 0.075. So that would be 75 divided by 12. And of course, I'm just going to close that. And then what we have there would be, so what did we have there? So there was 730. 214.14, divide that by 652, 743.95. So what we actually have would actually n would actually be equals to, so this would be actually 18. So in this case, we know that of course it took 18 months, right, in order for that amount, in order for us to obtain that amount from this amount that we had. So again, ladies and gentlemen, as you can I'm sure you've probably seen it, that you probably saw that actually my battery is actually running low. But of course, so this would be the question for today. But otherwise, it has been fun. Of course, if you've got any questions, you're more than welcome to throw that in the comment section. Right. Of course, if you have got any question, of course, that paper question that you would love me to do, you are always welcome to this. To just suggest that in the comment section. But as of course, if this video helped you at some point, be sure to hit that like button. And of course, if you haven't subscribed, please just consider becoming the part of this growing community. But as the story always ends, ladies and gentlemen, this is Sir Mike signing out. Sharp sharp.